Welcome to Soul Care. A few minutes in your week to pause and think about spirituality and life. I'm wearing today the Jerusalem cross because I'm thinking about Christians in Bethlehem whom I met when I was there and the strife going on there in their town right next door to Jerusalem. And I'm also wearing my Palestinian scarf, which a man of Muslim faith would wear in Israel, Palestine. And I'm praying for peace. I'm praying that there might be the start of a peace time, the start of a ceasefire that then could eventually work into a lasting peace. It's not very hopeful, but at least I would hope for a start of a ceasefire. Startings are tough. It's hard to get started at some things. I've been having some trouble getting going on the writing that I'm doing. I'm writing a book since retirement, and some days I just can't get started with it. So I took a week off this past week and had what I call a writing retreat. I went to Bodega Bay to a friend's cabin there all by myself, and I was able to get started and get back into writing, and it was great. It took some time of meditation and time away, some quiet time away from other stresses, other things that draw me into the world. I had to go inside first to find that quiet that then allowed me to put my effort into the writing. Sometimes starting is kind of hard. I was away for a week, and so I wasn't swimming this past week, which has been a pattern now for me as it's been allowed in my local pool to swim with reservation and special lanes and so forth. And so today I wanted to go back to it, but frankly, it was hard to get started. It was hard to think of going back. I was thinking, well, it's cold and windy. And do I really want to go swimming? And I don't have time today. And I was thinking of all the excuses. But then when I went there, although it was breezy, the air was warm. The water was cold, I gotta say. And it was hard to get in. But of course, once I got in and swam a lap, I was just fine. That start is kind of tricky. Well, we're starting back in this year after our pandemic started. Things are starting back again. And for some of us, it's just as hard as the beginning of the pandemic. The beginning of the pandemic was a beginning, a start, but it was forced on us. We couldn't go places. We couldn't do things. It was anxious and we were fearful, and there was a lot of pain and suffering that was caused by people's situations, losing jobs, kids not going to school, people losing their health, in fact, some dying. So it was tragic, but it wasn't voluntary. Now, on the end of more than a year in sheltering in place, we're experiencing some choices. Those of us who are vaccinated, at least, are experiencing some choices. Can we go out into the world again? I know our church is planning on in-person worship in June. There's some anxiety about it, how to start up again, how to do it right this time, and how to make some changes as necessary. Well, as the United States opens up, I'm hoping that people will make conscious choices and they will not be afraid to do some things for the first time, to start going back or to start moving forward. The prophet Isaiah said, "Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild animals will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I will give water in the wilderness, rivers in the desert, to drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself so that they might declare my praise. That's from Isaiah chapter 43. A beautiful message of hope. This is our faith, the faith of the Christian and Judaic peoples, to believe in the promise of hope, a new day, new life. Teresa of Avila was a mystic in the Middle Ages. She was a 16th century Carmelite nun in the town of Avila, Spain. And she wrote a book called The Interior Castle. It's a book about prayer, a very old book, and it's remarkable that a woman wrote such a book in the 16th century. Well, I read a commentary by Stephanie Paulsell, who wrote about St. Teresa's writing relating to today as we come out of this pandemic year. She noted it might seem counterintuitive to read an account of an inward journey and think about a journey back out into the world at the same time. But Teresa, St. Teresa of Avila, seems always to be looking in both directions at once. The whole point of the journey inward, she writes, is to make ourselves fit to be in service in an outward way to our neighbor. The whole point is to love more, Teresa says. Teresa acknowledges how hard it is to get started on a new path, how weary it made her to feel, quote, "I'm writing this book under obedience," she says on the first page, "and I'm already finding it hard. God hasn't given me any desire for this work, and my head is so full of noise that I can hardly compose a letter about the most ordinary business, much less a book about prayer." She sounds like anyone who's having trouble starting a creative endeavor. She's unsure about herself. She's fearful about what will be required. The regathering and reopening that we are now inching toward in our society and world is a great creative project, especially if we see it not as just a return to the same old way, but as a chance to do things differently. It's daunting. As Teresa knew, it's daunting to push past our fear and to decide whether we are indeed up for the task. But she is up for it. She's able to do it. She writes her way past her misgivings. She simply dives in. One of the temptations on the journey toward God, Teresa says, is the temptation to feel satisfied with where we are. Moving through the first 3 rooms of the interior castle, she says, we might begin to feel that we have found a stopping place. We pray, we meditate, and we cultivate virtues, the 3 steps. Why not be satisfied with that as a good life? But Teresa wants us to be dissatisfied. She wants us to go on exploring on the path to God. We can love more, she says. We can act with more justice and truth. We have the capacity for so much more transformation, for so much more change. So perhaps if we look inwardly, we'll see that this is a journey we've already been on, and we can gain insight from that journey and gain strength and support from God and from the gathered community in worship. And then we'll be able to go out in the world and serve our neighbor in new and creative ways. I hope that you begin dipping your toes in the water and that you're ready for change. You're ready to start thinking about it and then start doing it. I pray for you and hope it is well with your soul.